You twist the key, and the front door of a brand new, never lived in house swings open with a hollow echo. The air inside is cool, too cool, like the builder kept the thermostat running to hide the smell of fresh paint and fresh panic. Outside, a low gray sky presses down on the street, wind pushing grit along perfectly poured sidewalks that feel eerily unfinished without people. You step onto a driveway so clean, it looks unused because it is. Across the way, another move-in ready sign shudders on its stake, and another, like warning flags in a storm. This isn't just a slow season. It's a southern new construction unwind that's turning once hot cities into inventory graveyards, with builders slashing prices, stacking incentives, and watching demand evaporate under high rates and tightening budgets. Stay with me on the Genspark Real Estate Brief. Hit subscribe now, because we're starting at number 10 and counting down to the city where the market isn't cooling, it's collapsing, step by brutal step. Number 10, San Antonio, Texas. You roll in under a wide Texas sky, where new rooftops stretch like a second horizon beyond the older neighborhoods. For years, San Antonio felt like the safer big city, more affordable, more stable, more livable. Now the shine is dulling, and the cracks are starting to show. Back in 2022, the market hit its recent peak, fueled by pandemic migration, cheap debt, and buyers fleeing pricier metros. New subdivisions multiplied fast, and builders treated the outskirts like endless blank canvas, betting demand would never blink. Today, the numbers are turning concerning. Zillow figures show the median value sits around $290,000 versus roughly $335,000 at peak, a drop near 13%. Redfin data indicates days on market up from about 25 to near 50. Local MLS reports show inventory up roughly 40% year over year. Realtor.com trends point to nearly 30% of active listings taking price cuts. Sales volume is down about 18%, and price per square foot has slipped roughly 8%. Investor purchases are softer, down about 20%, while rents are flat and vacancy edging higher, near 7%. Two forces weigh hardest: Texas property taxes, commonly around 2.0%, 2.6% effective rates, and mortgage rates that turned affordable into crushing. Add rapid building on the fringe, and oversupply starts to whisper. As you leave San Antonio behind, the market feels like a rope fraying, still holding, but unraveling fast if rates stay high and builders keep pouring new slabs. Number 9. Charleston, South Carolina. You arrive with salty air and postcard streets, cobblestone charm meeting sprawling new communities farther inland. Charleston used to feel bulletproof: history, tourism, prestige. But beyond the waterfront, the new build machine is grinding against reality. Charleston's pandemic-era surge peaked around 2022, when buyers paid premiums for coastal lifestyle and remote work freedom. Demand pulled, construction outward, and price growth started to look permanent. Now the pullback is troubling. Redfin shows median prices sitting near $520,000 versus about $10,000 at peak, roughly 15% down. Zillow indicates new listings rising around 20% as sellers race each other. Days on market have stretched from roughly 20 to about 45. Price reductions hit near 35% of listings, per Realtor.com. Sales are down about 22%, and price per square foot is off around 9%. CoreLogic data reveals higher distress pressure, with foreclosure activity up roughly 18% off a low base. Rental vacancy has climbed near 8% in some submarkets as new units deliver. Insurance is the shadow here. Coastal risk pushes homeowners' insurance into $3,000, $6,000 plus annually for many properties, and flood coverage adds more. Combine that with rising taxes and stretched incomes, and demand doesn't just cool, it retreats. As you pull away from Charleston, the market's charm feels like paint over moisture, beautiful on the surface, but starting to blister as the foundation shifts. Number 8. Nashville, Tennessee. You crest a hill and see cranes like steel reeds, new apartments and subdivisions rising around a city that once felt like pure momentum. Nashville became a relocation magnet, a dream city with music, jobs, and energy. Now, the tempo is off, and the beat is slowing. The market peaked in 2022, powered by remote work, corporate expansions, and a flood of newcomers who treated Nashville like the next Austin. Builders responded with relentless new supply across the metro. Now it's getting alarming. Zillow figures show a median near $430,000 versus roughly $520,000 peak, about 17% down. Redfin shows days on market up from around 18 to about 45. Local MLS reports indicate active inventory up roughly 55%. Realtor.com shows price cuts on about 38% of listings. Sales volume is down about 25% year over year. Price per square foot is down around 10%. Investor purchases have dropped about 28% as the short-term rental math weakens. Apartment and single-family rental vacancy is near 8%, 9% in fast-growing corridors. The pressure points are clear: rapid supply delivery, higher rates, and wage growth that can't keep pace with prior price gains. Tennessee's taxes may be lower than some states, but affordability is still breaking under financing costs. As you leave Nashville behind, it feels like a stage after the lights cut, quiet, echoing, and full of empty seats where buyers used to cheer. Number 7. Tampa, Florida. You drive in under bright sun that somehow feels harsh, like it's exposing every for sale sign. Tampa was one of the hottest markets in America. Sun, jobs, migration, and a sense that Florida demand was endless. Now, the heat is turning brutal. Tampa's peak hit in 2022, when pandemic movers and investors piled in. Confident rents and appreciation would outrun everything. Builders accelerated, and the pipeline swelled across the region. Today, the slide is undeniable. Redfin reports median prices near $360,000 versus roughly $450,000 peak, about 20% down. Zillow shows inventory up around 60% in many zip codes. Days on market have doubled from about 20 to near 45. Realtor.com indicates price reductions on about 42% of listings. Sales volume is down roughly 26%, and price per square foot is off about 12%. CoreLogic data reveals investor buying down around 35% as insurance, and taxes devour returns. Rental vacancy rates are pushing 9%, with concessions returning. Florida's core problem is cost shock. Insurance frequently $4,000, $8,000 plus a year, plus flood risk, plus HOA dues in many new communities. When payments jump, demand evaporates fast. As you exit Tampa, the market feels like sand slipping through fingers, once unstoppable, now hemorrhaging momentum with every new listing. Number 6. Raleigh, North Carolina. You arrive to sleek office parks, new townhomes, and a tech-forward reputation that made Raleigh feel like a sure bet. For years, this region was framed as growth with stability. Now stability is cracking, and the pace of building is becoming a liability. The high point came in 2022, when the Research Triangle's job engine, remote work, and low relative costs pulled in buyers from the Northeast and West Coast. Builders treated demand like a permanent pipeline. Now conditions are worsening. Zillow figures show values near $410,000 versus about $485,000 at peak, down roughly 15%. Redfin data shows days on market rising from about 12 to around 35. Local MLS reports indicate inventory up roughly 50% as new construction competes with resales. Price reductions hit near 36% of listings per Realtor.com. Sales volume is down about 23%, and price per square foot has dipped about 9%. Investor purchases are down roughly 25%, and rental vacancy has climbed toward 8% in areas with heavy apartment delivery. Tech hiring cooled, and layoffs rippled through remote work-heavy payrolls. At the same time, builders kept delivering product into a buyer pool squeezed by rates. The imbalance is no longer subtle. As you leave Raleigh behind, the market looks like a blueprint left in the rain, edges curling, ink bleeding, and timelines falling apart. If you're finding this data-driven analysis useful, like the video and comment which city surprises you most. Your engagement helps us continue this research. Number 5. Orlando, Florida. You enter a city that sells sunshine and fantasy, where new subdivisions bloom behind themed billboards and palm-lined roads. Orlando once felt insulated by tourism and constant in-migration. But now, the housing market is flashing red. Orlando peaked around 2022, driven by investors, short-term rental demand, and pandemic-era relocation. Builders chase that wave hard, expanding far beyond the core. Today the downturn is severe. Redfin shows median prices near $360,000, compared to roughly $460,000 peak, about 22% down. Zillow trends show active inventory up around 70%. Days on market have jumped from roughly 18 to about 50. Realtor.com indicates price reductions on about 45% of listings. Sales volume is down roughly 28%, and price per square foot is down around 13%. CoreLogic data reveals investor purchases down about 40%, especially in STR-heavy zones. Rental vacancy is near 10% in pockets where new units and softened tourism collide, and affordability metrics show buyers spending 35% plus of income on housing. Insurance and HOA costs are crushing. Homeowners insurance often $4,000, $9,000 plus, and many communities carry monthly dues that turn cheap Florida into a myth. Oversupply finishes the squeeze. As you drive out of Orlando, the market feels like fireworks after the finale. Smoke hanging, silence settling, and the crowd realizing the show cost more than expected. Number 4. Jacksonville, Florida. You cross wide highways into a city that once marketed itself as Florida's last affordable coastline. Jacksonville looked like a bargain, space, beaches, and relative value. Now, that bargain is evaporating under a wave of listings. The peak arrived in 2022, when remote workers and investors moved fast, expecting steady growth and easy rent increases. Builders ramped up across sprawling corridors, assuming demand would keep absorbing supply. Now, the data is devastating. Zillow figures show median values near $310,000 versus about $400,000 peak, roughly 23% down. Redfin indicates days on market up from about 20 to nearly 55. Local MLS reports indicate inventory up about 80%. Price reductions hit about 48% of listings per Realtor.com. Sales volume is down roughly 30%, and price per square foot has fallen around 14%. CoreLogic data reveals foreclosure filings up roughly 25% off low levels. Investor purchases have dropped about 38%, and rental vacancy is pushing 10% as concessions spread. Jacksonville's pressure cocktail is ugly. Insurance costs surging, wages lagging prior price growth, and new construction competing directly with resales. When builders cut, everyone else bleeds. As you leave Jacksonville behind, the market feels like a dam cracking, small leaks turning into a roar, and the waterline dropping fast. Number 3. Phoenix, Arizona. You step into desert light that feels sharp enough to cut, reflecting off stucco walls and brand-new driveways. Phoenix was the poster child of boom and bust, and the boom was massive. Now, the bust is back with alarming familiarity. The market peaked in 2022, when migration from California, investor demand, and low rates ignited explosive growth. Builders sprinted, expanding outward with entire master-planned cities. Now the decline is brutal. Redfin shows median prices near $420,000 versus roughly $560,000 peak, about 25% down. Zillow trends show inventory up around 75%. Days on market surged from about 15 to around 55. Realtor.com indicates price reductions on roughly 50% of listings. Sales volume is down about 32% year over year. Price per square foot is down around 15%. CoreLogic data reveals investor buying down roughly 45%, and rental vacancy has risen near 10% in overbuilt pockets as rent growth stalls. Rates hit Phoenix harder because the market was already stretched. Add spiking HOA costs in new communities and escalating utility bills in extreme heat, and the monthly payment becomes a wall buyers can't climb. As you drive past Phoenix's endless new rooftops, the market looks like mirage turned real. Hope shimmering, then collapsing into sand the moment you get close. Number 2. Austin, Texas. You arrive in a city that once felt like a gold rush with food trucks and cranes, where every new neighborhood promised instant equity. Austin's boom became legend. Now the legend is bleeding out, and the numbers are outright brutal. Austin topped out in 2022, powered by tech money, remote workers, and a wave of investors treating housing like a high-growth stock. Builders expanded aggressively, convinced demand would absorb anything. Now the fall is crushing. Zillow figures show median values near $490,000 versus roughly $690,000 peak, about 29% down. Redfin indicates days on market, up from about 12 to around 50. Local MLS reports show inventory up roughly 90%. Realtor.com data points to price reductions on about 55% of listings. Sales volume is down roughly 35%, and price per square foot has slid about 16%. CoreLogic data reveals investor purchases down about 50%, and rental vacancy is near 10%, 11% as supply piles up and rents soften. Affordability metrics show payments consuming 40% plus of typical income at current rates. Texas property taxes hammer budgets, often 2.1%, 2.7% effective, and tech layoffs cut directly into demand psychology. Oversupply turns that fear into action. As you leave Austin behind, the market feels like a tower built too fast. Floors sagging, supports groaning, and gravity finally collecting its debt. Number 1. Cape Coral, Florida. You drive over canals that glitter, under a sky turning storm dark, and the wind carries that salty, uneasy hush that comes before heavy rain. Cape Coral was sold as paradise on demand. New homes, water access, Florida life at scale. But now it looks like a spreadsheet of empty rooftops. Cape Coral peaked around 2022, when investors and second home buyers piled in, chasing rent yields and lifestyle. Builders unleashed a flood of inventory, treating demand like an infinite tide. Now the collapse is catastrophic. Zillow figures show median values near $350,000 versus roughly $500,000 peak, about 30% down. Redfin indicates days on market exploding from about 20 to near 70. Local MLS reports indicate inventory up around 120% as new construction overwhelms absorption. Realtor.com shows price cuts on roughly 60% of listings. Sales volume is down about 40%, and price per square foot has dropped around 18%. CoreLogic data reveals investor demand down roughly 55%, while foreclosure filings are up about 35% off a low base. Rental vacancy is near 12%, and builders are stacking incentives that quietly equal massive discounts. Rate buydowns, closing costs, and price slashes that can feel like 40% effective cuts in a 2026 buyer's market. Insurance is the knockout punch. Premiums often $5,000, $12,000 plus flood risk, plus storm-driven uncertainty that freezes demand. Oversupply turns fear into freefall. As you leave Cape Coral behind, the market isn't just unraveling. It's collapsing like wet drywall, and the verdict is clear. Recovery won't be quick, and pain will spread. We just counted down 10 southern and Sunbelt markets where empty new construction is piling up, and builders are bleeding pricing power. From concerning softening to outright devastating collapses, the common thread is the same: high rates, oversupply, and ownership costs that are crushing demand. This is what happens when pandemic-era assumptions meet 2026 reality. When migration slows, investors retreat, and builders can't stop the pipeline in time. If you're buying, selling, or investing, treat these signals like storm warnings, not headlines. Subscribe to GenSpark Real Estate Brief, like the video, and comment the city you want us to break down next. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next report.